Hi, this is Tisch Aitken, and I'm here to discuss the week of May 18th, 2020. Now, this past week, we had three planets stationed retrograde in the sky. So that makes us much more in a review period. And just to encapsulate the three planets, Saturn, which stations direct on May 11th, 2020, stationed at 1 degree of Aquarius, and it will re-enter the sign of Capricorn on July 2nd. And Saturn is how we structure our goals and achieve our ambitions. It's also the planet of karma and how we can learn our karmic lessons as to what we need to work on in our lives. Venus, which is the planet of love and beauty and how we find value, stationed retrograde on May 13th, 2020 at 21 degrees of Gemini, and it will be retrograde until June 25th when it stations direct at 5 degrees of Gemini. And Venus is a personal planet. It only retrogrades once every year and a half, so it's not very common. And it is currently out of bounds, which means that it's really not playing by the rules and all over the place. In Gemini is very communicative and social, and when it stationed retrograde, it did so with a square to Neptune, only within a degree. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, so this is really creative energy, and that's a good use of it this next 6 weeks or so, I think. But it also can be very confusing and emotional, and Neptune is in its rulership in Pisces, and it can be deceptive, and it can be, again, very emotional energy. And Jupiter, which is the other benefic of the zodiac, stationed retrograde on May 14th at 27 degrees of Capricorn, and it will station direct on September 29th at, September 12th at 17 degrees of Capricorn. So now we've had three planets stationed retrograde, and that gives us a more reflective tone. But really, even though that's generally a time where things, and it is a slowing down of things in a sense and a review period after such a huge year for all of us. The thing is, though, we're approaching eclipse season, and it's going to be a really busy summer because whenever we have eclipses, that's a heightened time. It's a lot of activity, a lot of rapid change, major beginnings and endings. Often things happen out of the blue, things that we didn't expect. The eclipses are like wild cards. They can bring things to light that we've never seen before. And we have, the eclipses will begin on June 5th, and we have three eclipses. And I'll get more into detail in future videos. But we're getting near eclipse energy, and we're feeling that heightened energy as well. And this week, let's see. So we've just had the review, the retrograde energy come in, and we're just getting a brief review because we're going to have a lot happening over the summer. So I wouldn't really view it as a slow-paced summer by any means. But on Monday, the moon is going to be in Aries. It's going to meet up with Chiron, the wounded healer, at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now, many will be hopefully asleep at that time, but it could bring up anger around wounds or processing them. And then later on Monday, it's going to form a sextile to Mercury in Gemini. And that's a good energy that looms the rest of the day. That's good for expressing your emotions and how you feel, and perhaps taking action to work on those issues. So that's the deal on Monday. On Tuesday, the moon is going to square Pluto, and it will station retrograde with a square to Jupiter, which will expand that energy. The moon in Aries is ruled by Mars, pretty fiery placement anyway. But with moon square Pluto, Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. That is a power playing aspect, so not the easiest one. And that's looming for most of the day on Tuesday. So people will probably be a little moody with that energy. But it then enters Taurus at 10:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then the following day, on Wednesday, the 20th, the sun is going to enter the sign of Gemini, and it will be in Gemini until June 20th. And so now we'll have the sun in Gemini. The nodes of fate have just changed signs. They went from Capricorn, Cancer to Sagittarius, Gemini. So the north node of fate is now in Gemini at the final degree. Mercury is in Gemini until May 27th. And we will be having this big new moon in Gemini on May 22nd. So we have quite a bit of Gemini influence, a lot of mutable energy, a lot around communication. Mercury rules the sign of Gemini. So on Wednesday, we've got the moon in Taurus ruled by Venus. Venus is currently in Gemini, out of bounds, squaring Neptune. In fact, that day, later in the evening, there's an exact square of Venus and Neptune. And Venus is love and beauty, and Neptune being the higher octave of Venus, again, the creative part of it. But it can be on Wednesday that perhaps secrets get uncovered, perhaps there's some deception, it could be emotional energy with relationships. Also that day earlier at 2:07 p.m., the moon in Taurus is going to meet up with Uranus. So there could be unexpected news that comes up for people. Again, could be things around money and relationships, because that's what Venus rules. And Venus rules the moon in Taurus, and Venus is squaring Neptune in the sky that day. And then we've got, let's see, later in the week on Friday, we've got a new moon in Gemini that takes place on, let's see, on Friday at 1:39 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And that new moon falls at 2 degrees and 4 minutes of Gemini. So you want to see where that falls in your chart. Now, if you know your time of birth, there are many different services online, astro.com, Cafe Astrology, and there are several others where you can just plug in that info and see where 2 degrees of Gemini falls. That's where you want to initiate new beginnings. Mercury, again, rules the sign of Gemini. So it's a great new moon for articulating and verbalizing what you want to manifest. It's very much around neighborhood activities, siblings, cousins, friends, a lot around communication, a lot around networking and local type things, but very much around communication of all forms. And the new moon chart itself is very, very, I'd say, creative as well. It's got Mercury is the ruler of the chart itself because it has Virgo ascendant. I cast the chart for the East Coast. So Virgo rules the chart, and Mercury rules the sign of Virgo and Gemini. And so Mercury rules the moon itself. The new moon falls in the 9th house, which is the Sagittarian house in astrology. The 9th house represents hopes. It's the house of higher learning and education, and of having something to believe in. So this new moon is a great time of learning new things, but also trying to tap into your manifesting abilities, because Jupiter, well, Sagittarius is the 9th house is very much associated with manifesting and magnetizing what you want, and definitely tapping into your hope. And the Venus is going to be conjunct Mercury that day in Gemini. Venus, again, is retrograde, out of bounds. They both fall at the top of the chart in the house of career, and they make an exact square to Neptune, all at 20 degrees mutable. So if you have any planets between 18 and 22 degrees of the mutable signs, you will feel that energy strongly that day. And the mutable signs are, let's see, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So again, a lot of mutable energy. And that new moon also, see if you have planets between 0 and 4 degrees of the mutable signs, because that new moon will also be setting those points off. But you want to see where that new moon falls in your chart as well. And again, it's a time of new beginnings and planting seeds, but we've got Mercury squaring Neptune that day, which is excellent for manifesting, because Mercury rules the mind, and you want to be able to feel the emotions. You want to not only visualize, but feel it. With, Mercury squaring Neptune is very imaginative. Venus squaring Neptune can be melancholy. It can be a bit sad, but it's incredibly creative energy. So do a lot of manifesting work, I think, for this new moon. Write down your intentions, be specific. And I think it's also a time of really tapping into whatever you love creatively, whether it's music, art, chanting, doing projects around the house. Everybody, creativity is a broad term, and there are many forms of creativity. So, tapping into what that is for you. And it's going to be a big summer. We have 3 eclipses coming up, very soon. This is the last new moon before eclipse season. And now we have 4 planets retrograde in the sky. So we're reflecting, but we're moving ahead at a rapid pace. And we're also going to have a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction happen on June 30th. That's the second of 3 this year, the first being on April 4th. And they're going to meet again at 24 degrees of Capricorn. And that's opening the portals of consciousness. And it's very transformative, but it's also bringing up a lot of the pain for all of us to feel and to deal with. And it's expanding this whole big summer ahead, and lots of change for all of us. So thank you, and definitely honor the new moon, and I wish you a lot of luck. Thank you. Bye-bye.